Hi there, it's Sandra here from Holistic Health Hub, my private therapeutic reflexology and integrative health therapy practice in Meermore and Newcastle in South Africa. I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about foot reading and how you can utilize foot reading to better understand your health challenges and to find healthy, natural approaches to healing and to improving your overall life and wellness. So foot reading is an art and a science, but it's something that you can quite readily learn the basics of and apply yourself in order to better understand the messages that your body has for you, and to figure out how those relate to the deeper aspects of life, your mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of life, so that you can make relevant lifestyle and life changes and decisions based on your experiences and where you are at now and what's going to work for you in terms of being able to respond more appropriately to life's challenges. So I'm going to, in this little video series, just explain the basics of foot reading, how we divide the feet into different zones, how those relate to different aspects of life, and what they can mean for you in terms of where you are experiencing indicators on your feet particularly, and how those are relevant to your health challenges, and then how those impact on your overall life and vice versa, and the kinds of things that you need to address in order to be able to release old blockages and move forward in a more appropriate and healthy manner. So I'm looking forward to sharing this information with you, and I do hope that you will find it very, very valuable. Yeah, all the best. Take care.
Foot reading involves the assessment of feet to determine the physical and mental emotional meanings of the reflexes on the feet. In other words, it gives a glimpse into the deeper meanings behind markers on the feet, providing insights into what underlies symptoms and how one can balance life and get it back on track. In foot readings, we divide the foot into 5 horizontal and 5 corresponding vertical zones. Each zone represents a different aspect of life and of the physical body. For example, Zone 1, which incorporates the toes, represents the head and neck space, both on the physical as well as the mental space then, metaphysically speaking. In line with that, the vertical zone incorporates all aspects of the physical body that line up with the first toe. The second zone incorporates emotions and involves the chest and shoulder region of the physical body and all organs that fall in that area. Zone 3 incorporates the midsection of the physical body, so spleen, stomach, and all the organs that fall in that zone, including kidneys, and it relates to the career or day-to-day activities of a person. Zone 4 represents the abdominal region, so it's related specifically to digestion and involves family and aspects of family life. And Zone 5 is represented by the pelvis and the legs, and largely focuses on our sense of security and direction in life. Vertical zones are also known as zones of influence. So when we're looking at the horizontal zone that's affected, or the area of the body that's affected in that zone, we also need to look at the vertical zone that intersects there and what the influence is behind the experience. For example, if there's a gallbladder problem, that is falling into horizontal zone 3, but it has vertical zone 4 intersecting. So it may be that we have some sort of bitterness related to our career, but that there's a family influence coming into play there. Other important information that can be gleaned from the feet are the constitutional characteristics of the person. So here we're talking about natural characteristics, personality tendencies, health challenges, strengths, weaknesses, etc. We essentially look at 4 constitution types: fire, water, earth, and metal. Fire tends to be a long reaching foot with long toes. Often there's a red coloration to the foot, whereas water is generally a more puffy, swollen looking foot, sometimes has a bluish coloration to it. Earth is a very sturdy looking foot, a very square foot, and may have a little bit of a yellow tendency towards the skin coloration. And metal is more a small, petite, often cold to the touch and often very pale in coloration. So the constitution of a person tells us a lot about their natural tendencies and their strengths and weaknesses. So we're able to determine from looking at the foot if the person is actually living according to their strengths, and if not, where they are going wrong. So where the imbalances are coming through. So for example, if we had an earth foot that was very red in coloration, we would see that there's an imbalance in terms of the natural tendencies versus what the person is actually experiencing at this point in time. So it helps basically by understanding this that we can firstly understand our strengths, our risk factors, so that we are able to guard against succumbing to any potential illnesses, and also to understand our innate resources and what we have available to combat any imbalances that we do experience in order to support a healthy and productive life. Okay, so let's get into actually reading a foot or a pair of feet. I'm going to talk you through a case study, and we're going to go into some details about how we go about this. So the first thing we need to do is determine the constitution of the person. Then we would look for three to four main markers, because there's so many things that the feet can tell us, but we really need to just get an overall picture about what is going on with this person. So we will look for 3 or 4 main markers, and then we will assess what those markers are actually trying to tell us. So we're essentially talking to the feet. We're trying to understand the story that they are telling us about the person's life. And in light of this, we also then need to remember that this is a story. So it's basically a narration from a point in the person's life through to where they are now. And all of this ties, all the markers tie in together in terms of what the person is experiencing, has experienced, where they have imbalances, where their challenges lie, and what aspects of life they need to make some important changes in order to be more healthy and have a more vital and productive life. It can help to have a basic medical history or background for the person whose feet you are reading, but it's not essential because the feet are actually so accurate in terms of the markers that they display that you really can understand what's going on without knowing anything about the person. Even their age or gender is not essential. So let's work through this case study. Essentially, we are looking at a constitution of fire. Here you can see from, especially from the side picture, that the foot is very long, or the feet are very long, the toes are very long, and there's not essentially too much redness, although the pictures are a bit dark. But remember, redness can also be about inflammation. So there's a lot of factors to keep in mind when reading the feet and looking at the different markers. We have to also put things into context. So it is important to really have an integrated idea about what's happening when you start to read the feet on a regular basis. Your intuition will develop, and things will start to make more sense as you go through it. So I've basically highlighted 3 markers on this pair of feet. These belong to a female in her 70s. She has a history of osteoporosis, sinusitis, milk allergy, thyroid problems, and more recently, memory concerns. So when we read the feet, we also need to bear in mind timelines. So for example, if somebody has an injury or a blemish or anything on the foot, if you can ask them when that actually developed, many people don't actually notice these things, so they may not be aware. But if they can give you a time frame, it actually does help to put things into perspective and to see where and how the story began and how it's progressed from there. So we also, when we look at the marks, it's nice to be able to read them in a progressive way. So try and see which sort of tend to be more of a chronic situation, which ones are more current, and what kind of storyline makes the most sense. We also need to remember that the left and the right foot tell us different things. So besides the fact that there are different organs, for example, the liver is only on the right-hand side of the body, so the right foot would have an organ, would have the liver organ as a reflex, and the left foot would then have the spleen. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But also, the left foot represents present time and feminine energy, whereas the right foot is past issues and more masculine energy. So those also need to be read into the storyline. So let's look at marker number 1. Here we are looking at the bottom right hand picture with the blue circle. It's a mole on the dorsal aspect, or the top of the foot. It's on the left foot, and it falls into vertical zone 2 and 3, so at the junction of those two, and horizontal zone 2. So remember horizontal zone 2 is our emotional zone, and vertical zone 2, 3 would then be the zones of influence, and there we have emotional and career or day-to-day activities coming into play. So with this marker, knowing the history of the mole, the client indicated that it resulted from a thorn which came through the bottom of the foot and never exited. So that's quite pertinent as well. You know, the symptoms that are actually being displayed, the markers and what they represent in terms of what's happened is really important in understanding the message that they actually carry. So we also have a deep groove over the thyroid reflex. Now the thyroid reflex is the bubble underneath the foot in line with the big toe, so that just below that there's often a groove in there, which tends to be related to the thyroid and sugar balances, metabolism, etc. And that also falls in horizontal zone 2 and 3. So that's why I've brought it in with this marker, because they are pretty much telling the same sort of story about the same issue. So then, of course, you have poetic license, and your intuition definitely plays an important role in terms of how you interpret the markers. And obviously with experience that becomes easier. So here I have interpreted this as a deep penetrating wound which has created a mountain of trauma. And this resulted in the crater, so the thyroid groove is a crater between the emotional and the day-to-day or career aspects of life. So that groove is lying between those two horizontal zones, 2 and 3, and it's essentially then causing a divide between them. So then we need to look at what is this saying about the person's experiences on the physical, on the metaphysical, the mental, emotional, etc. So physically, we're going to have thyroid and heart or chest problems, because horizontal zone 2 is lying over the chest region in terms of the physical body, and obviously those are the organs that we find there. And obviously, metaphysically speaking, we've already said that it's about an emotional trauma that has not actually healed and that has resulted in this divide between between the emotional and the career aspects of life. Also, just in this area, there's a crack at the tip of the second toe, which also indicates a mental crack, because the toes, remember, are the mental zone of the body. So anything happening with the toes is happening in the head space. So we have a crack at the tip of the second toe. So second toe is vertical zone 2. Zone of influence is again emotional. So this indicates a mental crack due to an emotional trauma. So that's again why I brought this in, because you can see where you start to link the markers together, where they are indicating the same issue and carrying the same message. And oftentimes we will have one minor marker, and if that goes ignored and the situation is not corrected, then another marker will come into play, and so it goes. And so that's how illnesses become chronic as well. We tend to ignore the body's messages, and it keeps sort of shouting louder and louder until it gets the attention it needs and we address the issue at hand. Right, so that's marker 1. Let's talk about marker 2. Here I focused on the dorsal aspect, or the top side of the feet, and you can see encircled are pocked tendons. So these are the tendons on the tops of the feet that have become very strained, and also anemia bumps, which are the two little bumps that are highlighted by the triangles or the diamonds, and those are in line with the first toes, so they're in vertical zone 1, but they are at the line, the horizontal zone line of the second and third junction really. Now both of these are an indicator that the person is very overdriven, and they put a lot of strain on themselves, both physically, mentally, and probably emotionally as well. And this can have the result of a depletion of resources. We can also look at the lower aspect of the foot, or the plantar aspect, where we can see horizontal zone 3 and 4 are very pale, which is also an indication of depletion and lack in terms of overuse of resources. The physical effects that the body will experience would then be related to metabolism and digestion. We can also see deep horizontal grooves in this zone, which is also an indication of stagnation. So potentially something like constipation may be a symptom that the client might experience, but there's definitely a lack of flow, and the body's probably holding on to as much of the energy and nutrients that it can, because it's needing every little bit, because this person is so overworked. So we are obviously here in the digestive zone in terms of reflexes, but we also need to bear in mind that this is career and family area, so there may be a lot of pressure in those aspects of life, one or both, and those in turn will then result in further stress and depletion of resources in this person. And finally, marker 3. Here I've focused on horizontal zone 1, essentially the toes, and you can see from this picture that the first three toes are dominant and separated, while the fourth and fifth toes are cringing together. This implies that there is a mental and emotional and day-to-day activity being a focus of energy. So this person is putting a lot of their focus and their energy and their resources into mental and emotional and career aspects of life. But there's no cohesion between these areas of life. The separation between the toes indicates that they really do manage each of these areas quite separately. Relationships and the sense of security and direction in life, which are represented by vertical zones 4 and 5, so toes 4 and 5, have basically taken a back seat. They are hiding behind the other aspects of life. And this ties in very nicely with the previous marker in terms of being overdriven, putting a lot of focus in terms of, or into career, into mental overthinking, into emotional, probably a backlog of emotional issues that haven't been dealt with, as we saw from marker 1. And that uses a lot of resources in the physical, mental, and emotional body. And then there isn't much time left for personal growth, for really finding oneself, and feeling secure and comfortable in life, and in turn then having happy, comfortable, and well-functioning relationships. On the physical, the head, the neck, and the upper digestive organs are going to be overworked and out of sorts with these kinds of symptoms, and the major joints and lower digestive and reproductive organs will be weak. So those are what lie in line with toes 4 and 5, and they're not getting much focus and attention. So they are going to be quite vulnerable and subject to potential risk. So to sum up, you can actually see that there's so much information that can be gleaned from just a few markers on the feet. In essence, this person is a very overdriven person. She puts a lot of attention and focus on thinking, probably overthinking, probably uses a lot of resources in terms of defending her emotions or protecting herself from emotional hurt, and puts a lot of effort and time into her career and her day-to-day activities. So she is probably excels at what she does, which is always a very positive attribute, but of course not when it's to the detriment of your personal health and growth. So, it's really important to find balance in life in terms of mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical aspects. And that's the next step. It's important to help people to understand where they're going wrong, but then also to guide them in terms of where they can make corrections and improvements to support themselves moving forward, to heal both on the physical, again remembering that the physical are messages. The physical body brings us or brings our attention to deeper aspects of life that we need to pay attention to. So helping people to understand the messages of the feet so that they can go deeper and start to unravel and clear out the blockages and imbalances that underlie those, and really start to live holistically and in a much more comfortable and joyful manner, and experience life in a way that it's meant to be experienced so that they can find their purpose and live their purpose on a day-to-day basis. And that's what comes next. Basically, is guiding somebody to understand what they can do on a practical level to balance where they're needing to balance. So in this case, I would advise that the client drinks at least 2 liters of good quality, preferably filtered water every day, which is actually a pretty standard recommendation because very few people really do drink the right quantity and quality of water, and that is one of the most important things anybody can do for themselves. And then hydration also supports metabolic and emotional energy flow. So where there's stuck energy, stuck emotions, hydration is actually really, really important to help that energy to shift and to allow the body to to be supported through that process as well. Secondly, to get in touch with her emotions and to try to process these fully. Often people will need additional support and help from a professional in this regard, depending on how capable they are of dealing with whatever they have to deal with on their own. But that is obviously their choice. And then things like core strengthening exercises, such as yoga, can help to improve stability and strength and flexibility and also to ground the person. So with the weakness in the joints, zone 5, vertical, and also that would then impact on the ankle, being zone 5 on the horizontal, the person really does need to improve their core strength and stability. And grounding, barefoot, walking outside every day is so vital just to help us to find ourselves, to recenter, to reconnect with Mother Earth, and to just find some clarity and some peace and some understanding in terms of other aspects of life. With those boundaries intact and sufficient moisture, her natural fiery tendencies can burn brightly and safely. So remember, we're going back to the Constitution. She's a fire element, and she needs to be able to live up to that, to the best of her potential. So she needs to support herself in reaching that potential and being able to project her natural tendencies in a manner that's going to be effective and not to her detriment. Okay, so since the feet represent the whole body and the whole person, in fact, across all bodies, I thought it would be quite pertinent to bring in some links here with the chakras, just so you can see how they actually tie in as well very beautifully. So the midline of the foot is actually representing the spinal column. So we have the chakras lying from the base of the foot right through to the toe. So chakra 1 lies at our base of the spine. That is all about our sense of self and security, our grounding in life. And as you can, if you remember, horizontal zone 5 links in very much with that. Then we move up through the chakras into chakra 2, which is our sacral chakra, and that's pretty much about interrelationships as we start to come out of our inborn family and interrelate a little bit more with the outside world. So there we have horizontal zone 4, and that is all about family. Then we're going into the solar plexus, which is about our personal power. And again, this is where we really excel. We strut out stuff in our career, our day-to-day life and activities. So you can see the connection there. Then we move again to, of course, the heart chakra, which is into emotional zone, horizontal zone 2. Then up into the throat, which is all about self-expression. So this is basically the link between our emotions and our mental aspects of life and how we uh, cohesively express that in terms of who we truly are and how we come across to the world. Then we move into our sixth chakra, which is our third eye, and that is about our intuition, and again into the mental zone, so how we perceive life, how we think, how we calculate experiences and so forth. And then lastly into chakra 7, which is all about the spirituality aspects of life, how we perceive things beyond us, how we see interconnection or not, etc. So again, there's a lot of mental aspects coming into play there, but it's reaching higher up. So when we can exceed and integrate all of the lower chakras and exceed our limited thinking, then we can start to delve into a better and more advanced spiritual growth and accomplish more in life. So foot reading is very much a part of therapeutic reflexology, which is an area I specialize in, and I just wanted to highlight the links here as well. As you can see from this diagram, I've divided it into the 5 horizontal zones, and of course the vertical zones would also apply. And you can see from this reflexology chart that the headspace represented by the toes, which is where you'll find all your sensory organs, your brain reflexes, your pituitary gland, your head and neck space reflexes, all lie within that horizontal zone 1. And then, of course, we're moving into the chest region, where all our chest, our heart, our lungs, etc. are found, all the reflexes are found for those. And then into midsection, horizontal zone 3, which incorporates the upper digestive organs and the liver and the spleen, etc. Then horizontal zone 4, which is our family zone and our lower digestive organs essentially, and zone 5, which is pelvic, legs, reproductive organs, etc. So when we are diagnosing, so to speak, any imbalances and issues in terms of foot reading, they can be very effectively treated and picked up also during a reflexology treatment. So just to highlight that reflexology in effect also treats the entire body physically, but also then goes into the deeper aspects of mental, emotional, energy blockages. We work very much with the energy meridian, and we help to identify and to clear out energy blockages that are contributing to physical experiences and symptoms that the person is complaining about. And then, of course, if we have the foot reading knowledge and understanding, we can help the person to gain further insight into what they are experiencing in terms of the other aspects of life, so that they can get a better picture of what is going on with them and understand why they're experiencing what they're experiencing, and start to really get a grip on how to holistically heal, how to make changes in their life that is going to support them in a healthy and well state of being in terms of all aspects of life. So it's just a nice combination to be able to work with the feet in so many ways. So just to sum up, foot reading is basically looking at the feet in terms of all aspects of life: mental, emotional, career, family, and security and direction in life, both on the horizontal plane and on the vertical plane. The horizontal plane specifically being what areas are being affected by wherever a marker is lying, and the vertical zones more about what aspect of life is contributing to that effect. So being able to identify aspects and markers on the feet can tell us so much about what's happening either right now in our lives, if it's a new marker, and or if it's on the left foot, or what's happened in the past, usually if it's a long-term marker or something that's on the right foot. And even if it's on the left foot, it means it happened long ago, but it's still happening now, and it's still having an effect on our lives now. And we are able to then start to understand what's going on with us on a deeper level, so that we can make really important changes in our life. So I do hope you found this information that I've presented here useful, and that you will apply it in your life and in the lives of your loved ones, helping people to understand what's going on with themselves. You know, the feet are really mirrors of our entire life, and there's so much we can learn from them. So I hope you have a newfound respect for them, and that this will be very valuable and useful information for you moving forward. And I wish you all the very best.